If you grew up in rural America, you probably heard the roar of Johnny Popper echoing across the fields. Today, we're taking a look back at 5 iconic John Deere tractors from the 1920s to the 1960s. You may have driven one of these. John Deere Model D. Remember the last time you heard the pop of an engine in the fields? A deep, steady sound, like the greeting of a faithful friend every morning. For those who grew up in rural America in the last century, it was more than just a sound, it was a part of life. Today, we look back at the John Deere Model D tractor, the machine that not only plowed, but also brought America into the era of mechanization. Introduced in 1923, the Model D was John Deere's first milestone in the modern tractor era. It was the first horizontal twin-cylinder tractor Deere ever produced, a basic but powerful design. With a displacement of 465 in superscript 3, 7.6 liters, the D produced about 27 horsepower at the PTO and 15 to 18 horsepower at the drawbar. It was powerful enough to pull 3 plows, an impressive feat at a time when most farms still relied on horsepower. The D weighed more than 5,000 pounds, used a thick cast steel frame, and had tough iron wheels, providing impressive traction on all types of terrain, from Iowa's black dirt to Nebraska's sandy soil. The transmission had 2 forward and 1 reverse gears, and a top speed of about 4.5 miles per hour. Not fast, but extremely reliable. Initially, the Model D was hand-cranked and ran on light gasoline or kerosene. In winter, you have to be patient, but once it starts, it runs from dawn to dusk.
Yeah.
By the mid-1930s, John Deere had improved. Rubber tires replaced steel wheels, dual fuel tanks, and an electric starter became an option. These improvements not only reduced operator fatigue, but also expanded the machine's applications. Without hydraulics, power steering, air conditioning, or a digital dashboard, the D got the job done. No fancy stuff, just tough, easy to fix, and never give up. That's why people trusted it for 30 years. From 1923 to 1953, more than 160,000 Model DS were produced. Not only was it the longest-running John Deere tractor at the time, but it was also one of the most influential tractors in American agricultural history. The D didn't just plow, it carried a generation into the farming era, the new era. You may remember, your father or grandfather sat behind the iron wheel of the D, shirt rolled up, engine oil dripping. There was no complaint on their faces, just peace of mind, knowing the machine would do its job. Today, if you go to an antique machine fair in Iowa or Missouri, you can still hear that familiar pop. Not from videos, but from the Model DS that are still alive. If you've ever driven a Model D, or repaired one in a barn, or just listened to it through the corn, tell the story. Because sometimes a machine is more than just steel, it's a memory, a companion, a part of America. John Deere Model A. Remember the first machine your father trusted to drive? Or the familiar sound of an old John Deere, the steady hum of its engine echoing through the corn before the early morning sun was high? If you lived in the American fields in the 1930s, you probably knew the John Deere Model A. Not only was it the best machine of its time, but it was also a symbol of a generation of resilient farmers. Introduced in 1934, the John Deere Model A was the company's first tractor specifically designed for row cropping, growing corn, soybeans, and other crops in long rows. The A was originally powered by a 309-inch horizontally opposed 2-cylinder engine that produced around 18 to 20 horsepower at the drawbar, and up to 28 to 30 horsepower at the PTO. With this configuration, the Model A could pull 2 plows with ease, was fuel efficient, and ran all day without complaint. During the Great Depression, when every gallon of fuel was precious, the Model A stood out for its economy and ease of repair. It ran on light gasoline, then switched to kerosene to save money, a practical and smart feature for the time. In 1939, the Model A was remade with a styled version by industrial designer Henry Dreyfuss, a rounded body, clear instrument panel clear, making the machine look more modern and easier to handle than ever before. This was one of the first times engineering and aesthetics met on an agricultural machine. The Model A had a 4 or 6-speed transmission, depending on the model, and a top speed of 6 mph. With a weight of over 3,700 pounds, rubber or iron tires, and a low center of gravity, the machine was stable on any terrain, including swamps and riverbanks. People loved the Model A not only because it worked well, but because it was easy to understand, easy to repair, and easy to trust. In many cases, it was used to pull trailers, threshers, or water pumps. And in small towns, the A sometimes pulled wedding cars or hay wagons at fall festivals. From 1934 to 1952, more than 320,000 Model As were produced, making it one of John Deere's best-selling tractors of the 20th century. The A laid the foundation for the entire line of row croppers that followed, from the Model B, G, to the later 60 and 620. You may still remember, when your father let you climb into the seat, your hands on the iron steering wheel, your fingers barely reaching the circle. The Model A was more than just a machine. It was where a father taught his son to farm, where two generations worked together, grew up together. Today, as they're still restored, shining at tractor fairs, roaring on small plots of land, or standing still in warehouses, a witness to the times. If you've ever sat behind the wheel of a Model A, or just remember the sound of it from your childhood, share your story. Because there are machines that don't just farm, they nurture memories. John Deere Model B. Not everyone needed a big machine. For smaller farms with less land, it wasn't about horsepower, it was about efficiency, compactness, and absolute reliability. In the 1940s, one machine did that better than any other, the John Deere Model B. And for many, it wasn't just the best machine of its time, it was the first one they learned to drive. Launched in the same year as its big brother, the Model A, in 1934, the John Deere Model B was a smaller, lighter, and more economical tractor. It was designed to serve the small and medium-sized farms that made up the majority of the United States at the time. Initially, the Model B had a horizontally opposed two-cylinder engine with a displacement of between 149 and 175 cubic inches, depending on the model. It produced about 12 to 16 horsepower at the drawbar and 18 to 24 horsepower at the PTO, enough to pull two plows, operate a thresher, or operate a hay bin. Compact, but not underpowered. The Model B weighed about 3,100 to 3,500 pounds and ran at about 4 to 6 miles per hour, depending on the transmission. And like the Model A, it used light gasoline to start, then switched to kerosene to save money. In 1939, John Deere refreshed the Model B with a styled design, rounded lines, easy-to-read controls, and a prominent grille. This design not only improved aesthetics, but also made the machine easier to operate in a variety of conditions. Customers loved the Model B for its versatility. It was powerful enough to work in the fields, but light enough to run between rows of corn and beans without damaging the roots. For those living on 20 to 40 acres, the Model B was a near-perfect choice. In the 1940s, when America was focused on World War II production and fuel economy was a national priority, the Model B stood out for its high performance and low cost. It was simple, easy to repair, and could work all day on just a few gallons of fuel. A number of later variations, the BN, BW, BR, BO, served specialized purposes, narrow wheels for row crops, wide wheels for soft soil, or a low-profile model for orchards. From 1934 to 1952, more than 300,000 Model Bs were produced, so many that nearly every small town had at least one. It became the national machine of American farming during the post-war and economic recovery period. Maybe you learned to drive in a Model B. Maybe your dad used it every spring, from seeding to harvest. Or maybe you still have one in the barn, no longer in service, but cranking it up once a year is a reminder of how important you once were. If you've ever driven a Model B, or just sat in the back seat while a loved one drove, share your story. Because a machine like that doesn't just produce crops, it captures a piece of childhood, a piece of America. John Deere 730. Some things are remembered when they end. Not because they were flashy or cutting edge, but because they were the pinnacle of an era. For American farmers in the late 1950s, that machine was the John Deere 730, the most powerful two-cylinder machine the company had ever produced. Today, we look back at the moment when technology, tradition, and reliability came together and created a legend. The John Deere 730, launched in 1958, was the last model in this 20 series, and the perfect end to a generation of two-cylinder tractors that had been a part of American agriculture for more than 3 decades. The 730 was powered by a two-cylinder diesel engine with a displacement of nearly 6.2 liters, CI 376, producing up to 53 horsepower at the drawbar, and nearly 65 horsepower at the PTO. This number far exceeded that of its predecessor, the 720, and was almost on par with some later 6-cylinder tractors. Despite having only 2 cylinders, the 730 was extremely smooth to operate, thanks to its refined design and its weight of over 7,000 pounds. It was a true workhorse, plowing, harrowing, threshing. There was nothing it couldn't do. What was special? It was a direct electric start system for the diesel version, a first for Deere. Previously, many two-cylinder diesels started with an auxiliary engine, a process that was both complicated and inconvenient. With the 730, you just turned the key. The 730 also offered gasoline, LP gas, and high-clear versions for lowland areas. The transmission was 6-speed, and the top speed was about 13 miles per hour, very fast for the time. In addition, the 3-point hitch, independent PTO, and power steering made it suitable for both tilling and gardening or hauling specialized equipment. From 1958 to 1961, tens of thousands of 730s were produced, and although it lasted only a few short years, the 730 became the ultimate engineering icon before John Deere entered the new generation era with 4- and 6-cylinder machines like the 3010 and 4010. You may remember its deep, booming sound, chuff-chuff pop, and it's unmistakable. Maybe you drove it through rows of ear-high corn, or hauled grain home from the fields as the sun was about to set. Maybe you still have it in your garage, not for work, but as an old friend. If you've ever driven a 730, or just grown up with it, share your story. Because sometimes a machine is more than just a tool, it's the most beautiful final chapter of a bygone era. John Deere 4020. There are tractors you hear before you see them. A deep diesel roar, a thin plume of smoke rising from the exhaust pipe, and you know, it's the 4020. For thousands of American farmers, this machine was more than just a tool, it was a companion. Today, we look back at the John Deere 4020, arguably the best tractor of the 1960s, and perhaps the best John Deere ever built. Launched in 1963, the John Deere 4020 was the perfect successor to the already successful 4010. But the 4020 didn't just follow, it surpassed. With its rugged design, advanced technology, and rugged performance, it quickly became the best-selling tractor in John Deere's history at the time. The 4020 is powered by a 404-inch 6-cylinder diesel engine that produces around 95 to 105 horsepower at PTO, a big jump in power over the previous generation. For a 100 to 300 acre farm, the 4020 can do it all: plow, spray, harvest, pump water, no need for a second machine. What users love is the optional power shift transmission, allowing shifting without disengaging the clutch. It also has power steering, independent PTO, powerful hydraulics, and a roll-o-matic spring-suspended seat, making it more comfortable for the operator during a long workday. With a total weight of around 9,000 to 10,000 pounds, large rear wheels, and a sturdy frame, the 4020 is not only powerful but also extremely stable on any terrain. It's also versatile, available in gasoline, diesel, or LPG versions, row crop versions for crops like corn and beans, standard versions for open fields, even high crop versions for sugarcane and vegetables. From 1963 to 1972, more than 184,000 John Deere 4020s were produced, a record number. Not only because it was powerful, but because it was simple, easy to repair, and never let its owner down. For many, it was the tractor that made a farm. Someone once said, "You only need one machine if it's a 4020." And indeed, many American farms have lived, grown, and passed down from generation to generation, all under the durability of this machine. Today, many people still keep John Deere 4020s, sometimes not for plowing, but to look back on a difficult time when human hands and machines worked together to make crops. If you've ever driven a 4020 or still have one in storage, please share your story. Because some machines don't just till the ground, they make memories. From the Model D of the 1920s to the mighty 4020 of the 60s, each tractor on this list carries a piece of American agricultural history. They don't just till the soil, they build memories and preserve the values of their forebears. If you've ever driven one, repaired one, or just missed the sound of it every morning, share your story below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss any more videos about the machines that made America.